All right, as I play the Chicory Colorful Tale soundtrack in the background, this is my debrief on PAX 2025, the East Edition, I should specify, because there are multiple PAXs. I'm talking about PAX East 2025, and what a year it was to be part of a couple different panels while also trying out various demos on the show floor and even hitting up the town a little bit. I passed backwards. You made it right on time. I stalled for time at the beginning by talking about EmblemCon instead, and then I accidentally stopped the stream when I meant to start recording because I was just switching to PAX. Like, you're here right as I'm starting PAX. But if you're interested in any of the stuff I did for EmblemCon, there are VODs on the EmblemCon Twitch channel, and the concert that I played, there are recordings of those songs on my own channel. So, fun times were had there. But on to PAX itself. I was assigned a few demos. You know, just a few. I mean, it was a totally manageable list, actually. I was done by, I had done all but 4 of them before Saturday. It was packed full of fun, for many reasons. So I guess let's start with Thursday. And I might not go chronologically throughout this whole thing. I'm just gonna go in the order that I remember stuff. So I might forget something I did on Thursday, and then have to backtrack and be like, oh yeah, I did this other thing. But Thursday came along, and this is when we found out how, so Thursday, I didn't queue up in the show floor right away. You know, generally, it's a good idea if you're trying to hit the popular demos to get in line first thing on Thursday. It's the least crowded day of the convention. I didn't really have that option because Thursday was the day of the Labo panel, and I signed up for a tech time to make sure that the slides and all the other stuff were working. I had to test the Switch as well because we had audience challenges. Hi, Mandu! We are back. So yeah, right now I'm on Thursday. Actually, I guess I could start with Wednesday night. That's what I mean. I'm gonna be a little all over. Wednesday night, I check into the hotel. And I'm at the hotel next door to the BCEC because I splurged for it. And there is a meetup for... Look, I'm not really on Facebook, but there is a PAX East Facebook group. And I do try and plug stuff there a little bit when we're close to the con so that maybe we get better numbers. But there is a Facebook group meetup in the hotel lobby on Wednesday night. So I go down and I try and chat it up, and at first I'm doing my usual terrible job at being social, and I'm just sitting there like, hi people, I want to talk to people, I don't know how to insert myself into this conversation. Silverstone Condor is joining us in the chat here today. This is their first time on the Azrian channel, and welcome. They were a co-panelist on the second panel that I did with Shell Shock Prime. And it was great to meet them. We have the same credit card, is something we found out. I won't specify which, but we do have a credit card in common. That's a random factoid. Yes, let me read the credit card number right now. It goes... No, it's Cardran. It's not it's the opposite of cash. It's the card. And I'm not talking about Balatro cards, although we could be. There is such a card in Balatro. I've played it. Oh, yes, the secret security code. That one is 127. I'm really glad that it's not actually 127. In fact, if I ever got a card where the security number was 127, which matches my birthday, which is why it's in my username, I'm pretty sure I would request a new card for security. So, Wednesday night, I'm there in the hotel, and I'm trying to insert myself into conversations, and by trying, all I really mean is sitting in one spot, gazing longingly at other people having conversations, and thinking, why can't I do that? I know, it's shocking the lore drop that there are not 126 more of me, but it's unfortunately the truth. So anyway, I'm just about to give up on the Facebook group meetup when I walk by a group of like 4 people, and they're talking it up, and I stand near them for a moment, and one of them actually comments on a pin that I'm wearing. I should go grab the pins for reference because not everyone was there to see the pins, but I left them over there in that corner. What do we think? Should I grab the pins for reference? Because this pin came up a lot during the convention. A lot of people commented on this pin. In fact, at one point, I got free stuff because I was wearing this pin. It wasn't expensive free stuff, but it was technically free stuff. And Silver, you were there when I got the free stuff, I'm pretty sure. Okay, one moment, I shall grab the pin, but I've got the background music going at least. Although it looks like I need to turn it up a little. All right, so this pin got me stuff and also friends. And they say money can't buy you happiness. We are, of course, talking about this pin from Fangamer that I ordered right before the con. Yeah, and in case it's not obvious from looking at it, it's functional. That's one of these pins that you can fidget with. Yeah. Admittedly, some of these tile pieces do get stuck. Like, it doesn't work perfectly. And for anyone who hasn't played Baba Is You to understand this pin, I encourage you to change that if you have any interest in puzzles. If you're not into puzzles, I probably wouldn't recommend the game, but it's a really cool puzzle game. Yeah, I went on Fangamer pretty close to PAX East starting to see if there was anything I wanted to update my wardrobe with. And I found a UFO 50 t-shirt, so I grabbed that. And I wore that on the first day of the con. But then I also saw that pin, and I'm like, that's a really cool idea for a pin. So yeah, this group of people at the meetup notices the pin, and that's my ticket in. I am now part of an actual conversation with actual people, and then we have at it for a couple hours. Turns out a couple of them were from a podcast called the Fun and Games Podcast, and that is fun in quotes. You have to put the fun in quotes, or at least they do. So yeah, that's all well and good. And of course, I told them about both panels that I would be a part of during the convention. I'm not sure that they made it to either one, but they at least knew about them and said they sounded cool. Maybe they were just being nice, but I feel like they meant to come to the Labo one if they were able to. you know, probably. And then, here, I'll just go down the lanyard real quick. This one I picked up at the convention for Just Shapes and Beats. They always have a Just Shapes and Beats booth there, and it amazes me how many people are, you know, standing around it watching the people play the game. Like, it's been out for a while. But admittedly, if it wasn't so crowded, I would be tempted to play it myself with other people there because it's a fun party game. Just grab a few other people and survive the song. I brought these shareable pins that I got with Mario and Luigi Brothership as a pre-order bonus. And I know Jesse would appreciate this, the fact that I always have to bring John and River from To the Moon. Because there's always going to be the Congal game fans who will notice those and be like, yeah, you're the cool ones. Rounding things out, you have to bring the Leighton coin. At least when you're me. I can't go without the Leighton coin. And the objection is part of a 3-pin set from Fangamer for Ace Attorney. I didn't wear all 3 because I like to diversify the pin set. And then finally rounding out the top is a Splatoon squid and the skeleton from Rift of the Necro Dancer, which I picked up the year that I played the demo at PAX. And now we're 1 year later, and I've actually played the full Rift of the Necro Dancer game. At least the full story mode. Oh, and this keychain of Tiki is from last year's Emblem Con. I bought it as part of a Tokyo Mirage Sessions keychain set. And decided that I needed to at least bring one of them with me. That's all wrapped up on the special guest pass. So, that's what I was wearing at PAX this year. Along with a UFO 50 shirt the first day. I know I wore Professor Layton on Saturday. And I wore a PAX shirt on Friday. And then Sunday I went home, so you didn't see that I was wearing the Chicory shirt, but the Chicory shirt is a really good one. Alright, so back to Thursday. We do tech time in the morning. We make sure everything is working. And, you know, surprisingly enough, everything works perfectly. And, like, it stays that way. There is not a giant technical failing during the panel. I think at one point, PowerPoint freezes for a couple seconds. I think that was the one thing that happened during the panel. But I wasn't too worried about it. It only lasted a couple seconds. I just reloaded the slide and we were good. So, thankfully, and I can say this now that it's over, thankfully no giant technical failings. I can't say the same thing about EmblemCon the week before with how the concert got delayed a whole half hour for tech stuff, but that is what it is. So after tech time, then I went down to the show floor, and I didn't go for Elden Ring because I knew I wasn't, like, very close to the front of the line. That'll happen if you're not there like a couple hours early because you're going right when they open, your tech time is over. So I just started going around to whatever other demos seemed to be available. And that's when I started doing the Marvelous booth. I noticed the Marvelous booth line wasn't too bad. And they were showing 4 different games that are published by Marvelous Exceed. I did end up trying all 4 of them, especially because there was a stamp rally for a raffle. I didn't win the raffle. But, yeah, I tried. So Thursday is when I played the new Rune Factory, Guardians of Azuma. Yeah, there were a couple stamp rallies on the PAX show floor. There was another one for like a set of 8 indie games. Yeah, Guardians of Azuma wasn't on the list that anyone sent me for recommendations, but it was there. And I was at least mildly interested in it. So I figured as long as I'm doing the other Marvelous stuff, I might as well knock out the new Rune Factory that is coming to Switch 1 and Switch 2. And they gave you 2 options for the demo. You could try the farming or the combat. And because I never made it to the combat when I played Rune Factory 5 that one time, I played Rune Factory 5 once. They wanted me to put grass in a grass box, but the game never made it clear where the grass box was, and I never found it, and then I stopped caring. So yeah, Guardians of Azuma, I tried the combat demo, and they've got a bunch of weapons in the game, so it feels very much like the new 3D iterations of the Mana series, which is a series that I like. It did feel quite easy. Yeah, I was a little hopeful for this new one, though. It's not a numbered entry, and you know, it's got a nice look to it. So it definitely feels like a 3D action game like the Mana series, and you're trying to exploit different elemental weaknesses. So for the boss that I fought, he was weak to fire. So I used the fire... What was it called? There's like a fire augment that you put on your main weapon to make it shoot fire. And you have other such augments for the other elements. As far as I can tell, it's not really like... It's not exactly like the Mana games, though, because, like, for one thing, there's no dodge button as far as I was aware. And I did look over the control guide that was sitting right there on the table, so I'm pretty sure they just expect you to run around to dodge stuff. And, like, same thing for guarding, if I remember right. So I don't feel like I got a good enough taste to be like, this is going to be an amazing game or anything, but it looks nice. I definitely liked... Oh, you know what? Come to think of it, I did have enough time left over after fighting the boss that they let me try the farming too. For just a little bit. And the one thing that the people at that booth really wanted to stress was that if you're not into the farming element in the Rune Factory games, that, like, this is the entry for you. Because if you get far enough in the game, they say that you can essentially offload the farming stuff to NPCs. You can still do it if you want to. But they're like, there are going to be systems where things get more efficient. You can effectively build something that'll get the farming part done for you, and then you can focus on the exploration and the combat. But if someone still wants to do the farming themselves, they could. And now all your weapons that are used in combat are also used in farming. I never got that far in Cult of the Lamb. I did try that game when it was on Game Trials for Switch. Did Rune Factory 4 and 5 try to do the same thing? Because I never got very far in 5. But at the very least, I'm going to keep my eye on the game a bit longer and see what other people think of it. But what I do know is that they are one company that is committed to actually getting the entire game on the cartridge for physical folks. Like, they didn't go the game key route. And the Nintendo Switch 2 edition has the upgrade pack on the card, and they're the people who made that clear to us in the first place. So I still have a respect for them. Anyway, I didn't get to the other 3 Marvelous games until the next day of the con. But should I keep talking about Marvelous with the other 3 games, or should I try and remember what else I did specifically on Thursday? Okay, well, this is why I kept notes in the Discord. Okay. After Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma, that's when I got to the first requested demo, which was Constance. I just happened to find that one pretty early. So, Constance, I definitely see why Bass Backwards was comparing it to Hollow Knight. It is essentially Hollow Knight. And I feel like that could have been a turnoff for me, because at a certain point in Hollow Knight, I just fell off the game because I was incapable. It's a full-on skill issue. I'm aware of this. I do not have the skills for Hollow Knight. So that could have been a turnoff for me with the Constance demo, but at least what I played seemed manageable for me. It's definitely a nice looking game. It's got the whole painter thing going on. It's kind of Hollow Knight meets Splatoon in a weird way, because your dodge maneuver lets you duck into the paint. I'm playing the Chicory soundtrack, and yet I compared it to Splatoon instead of Chicory, where in Chicory you are directly able to swim through paint. And that would have been the more apt comparison, but I blew it. So I was able to platform my way to the boss pretty well. One thing I will note about it is they had this very interesting system for respawning. So Hollow Knight does the whole Dark Souls thing where you die, you leave a ghost behind. If you want all your stuff back, you have to reconnect with your ghost before dying again. And I don't think Constance does that, but they give you 2 options whenever you die. So option 1 is, go back to the last save point that you activated. And option 2 is don't do that. Respawn on the same screen, but with 60% maximum health. And I kept choosing that option so that I could try and get as far in the demo as possible. I don't want to replay the other rooms. I'll just try and persevere. That's actually what the option is called, persevere. So I will try and persevere at 60% health and see how far I can get in the demo. Which meant that I was fighting the boss at 60% health, and I did not end up beating the boss. I imagine the demo would have ended if I had beaten the boss. But I think it's a very interesting option. Like, you can either give up your forward progress and retread the ground, but have all your health. Or you can keep your forward progress, but you will lose health. Which will make it easier to die, and then at a certain point you might just be like, well, I should just go back to the other part and have more health again. So I liked that. That was a standout option to me. That and all the animations involving attacking with paint and dodging through paint and stuff. So if it's less difficult than Hollow Knight, then I might keep my eye on it. But I imagine I was pretty early in the game because I was unlocking one of the main moves. And then I went on lunch break. I had some lunch, and that's then I went back and did the Labo panel. We're now at the Labo panel chronologically. So I have mixed feelings about the Labo panel this time around. Mostly positive. But, you know, I have just a little bit of mixed feelings because of circumstances. So, for one thing, this time, the panel was scheduled for Thursday afternoon. So, already, I'm expecting lower attendance than last year. Because not as many people take Thursday off. It's the slowest day of the con. So, it's normal to expect that you're not going to fill the room. Because, like, I want to stress, last year with the first Labo panel, we filled that room. Practically. But this time around, it was probably more like dozens of people instead of hundreds. Which is still respectable. Especially because the other factors that were against us were that there were like 3 other panels, at least, happening at the same time. And honestly, some of them sounded pretty neat. I might have put them on my schedule if I wasn't already doing my panel. One was supposed to be about visual novel releases. Another was... For some reason, I'm just remembering the visual novel one, but I know there was more. Yes, dozens indeed. And the one thing about having less people in the panel when you're planning to do audience participation stuff is that more of the people who want to participate will get to participate. So I felt like we got to just about everyone who really wanted to get involved in a challenge. So if you watch the VOD of the panel, which is not out yet, I am hard at work editing it when I'm not talking about PAX on a live stream. But I have edited the first 36 minutes of the panel, which leaves about 20 to go before the camera cut out. The camera, unfortunately, because I was recording at 4K 60, and it took up way more storage in my phone than I thought it would, it just kind of cuts out a couple minutes before the panel is over. Thankfully, you're not missing too much. Because by that point, we were doing audience trivia. So I think it's just the last couple trivia questions that got cut out, and I'm going to edit them back in. I won't be able to edit back in, like, the audience members who answered them, but I can at least show the questions, as well as any questions we didn't get to. So I will edit that back in at the end, but right now I'm just editing the part that was recorded. And I'm adding on-screen visuals because the slides are a little hard to see with the camera angle. So I'm putting the slides nice and clear in the corner of the screen like I did with the first one. But I'm over halfway done with editing that, and the VOD will become available in the near future. But just know that when you watch it, there is going to be a period of time where we're trying to call up audience numbers. And because there aren't as many audience numbers, it takes us a good number of tries to call out a random number that someone has. So I'd like to think I did a decent job of pivoting. Because after a certain point, I'm like, let's just call a number and see who gets the closest to that number. And that helped a bit. And by the time we got to trivia, I'm just like, okay, line up at the Q&A mic if you are interested in answering a trivia question. So at that point, it was volunteer basis, and that's why I think we got to just about everyone who really wanted to, because if they weren't already called, by that point, they could just get in line. Correct. In fact, because we needed a good number of volunteers, there was one point... we called a certain number, and one person had that number, and one person was one away from that number, and I just said, both of you get up here. just to speed things up, because I didn't want to lose too much time on logistics. But yeah, we did hit all our talking points. I pretty much perfectly planned the timing on this panel, and that's something I'm proud of. Like, it would have been even better if we didn't have to fuddle around with numbers a little bit at the beginning, and we probably could have gotten to every trivia question. But I was like, the structure just worked. I had my overview at the beginning. We had our top 10 picks that the group selected in advance to talk about during the panel. We talked about each of the 10 of those. We had our 3 audience challenges, and then we were out of there. And I wasn't like running over time or rushing at the end. Because that is one thing about last year. Last year's panel, I think one of the weaknesses is that I was rushing at the end because I had packed so much stuff in there. And I really could have kept talking about it for even another hour if they had let me. But yeah, if you go back to that VOD, you can definitely tell I'm trying to get things done at the end, and you know, wish that would have been budgeted better on my part. But this year, that was not the problem. So, do look forward to being able to see outside the box for yourself. And, man, the fact that Labo got me to speak at a convention twice is really something. I am thinking about possibilities for next year because I want to make sure my pitches are in order and whatnot. I do at least want to have 2 pitches like I did this year because one got in and the other didn't. You know, better odds, right? If I come up with more than one idea, then it's more likely they'll like one. But my immediate thought is Game Builder Garage as its own panel. And showing off audience creations by pretty much exclusively doing audience challenges, which would not require as many props. Doing these Labo panels both years and bringing in the cardboard props for people to use in the challenges and having to lug those from, even though the hotel that I'm in is right next door, I still got to bring it from my room, which is several floors up in the elevator, and then walk through the security check and then walk all the way to the theater in the back of the convention center because of course I'm in the back. Right, it was heavy. Surprisingly heavy for just being a bunch of cardboard. But Game Builder Garage, the idea would be just bring the Switch and the controllers. Have people play what was built in Game Builder Garage. You know, turn it into challenges like, can you beat your opponent at this multiplayer game? Or can you beat this single player level in X amount of time? And that way people get hands-on with it, but also get to see what people made. So that's probably my top panel idea for pitching for next year. But I want to at least come up with a backup. I think it would be good, though. And that would essentially be the 3rd Labo panel. It's at least Labo Descendant. All right, and then, of course, there was time left over on Thursday after that, so I got to 2 more demos that same day. One was, as Nick suggested, Among Us 3D. And I believe that game is out now. It came out a couple days before PAX. For those who don't know, it is essentially a non-VR port of Among Us VR. And I gotta say, my thoughts on that game were not as positive. And now, I might be a little biased because I'm not really a first-person shooter player and it uses FPS controls. I was not the sus. So the demo had us playing in a new mode for Among Us 3D/VR called tag mode, EAG. And so instead of having the imposter, you have the infected. And the crewmates still have their usual get your tasks done job, but this time they have to evade the infected. And if you get tagged by an infected, then you become an infected. And so, yeah, then your role changes and you have to gain up on any remaining crew members. So if the crew members finish their tasks, they win. If the infected infect everybody, they win. It is certainly an idea. Not at first. It'll become apparent not long into the game from my experience. But everyone has the pop-up on their screen just like the original game. Like, you are the crewmate, or you are the imposter, or you are the infected. So if you're playing in separate spaces and, like, can't screen peek at each other, then it would be just as unpublic as the imposter. But, I don't know, as more people get infected, it's like, you're gonna find out pretty soon. So I felt the match was over extremely quickly. It removes the entire element of, like, talking to each other. Yeah, true, everyone gets to play, but everyone is playing a much shorter match because the infected can really get you quickly. It does not take much for them to get you. Now, in Devil's Advocate, the crew gets power-ups. As you complete tasks, you get access to power-ups, and these are supposed to help you avoid getting infected. So, at one point, I got a power-up that made me completely transparent. At least temporarily. So, I had a download task. I got in front of the download console, activated that power-up, and then just waited for my download. Because, hey, the infected can't see me right now. This is a good time to stand still. Another power-up is the vent. In this mode, the vent is a power-up for the crewmate. It's not that the infected move through the vents, it's that the crewmates with this power-up can move through the vents as a means of evading the infected. And I had to, that was the other power-up that I got during my demo time. And unfortunately, I just messed up real bad at getting into the vent because there was an infected right on my tail. So that was unfortunate. As far as the actual tasks in 3D go, I mean, it's fine. It works on mouse controls, so this could definitely come to Switch 2 if they want. But instead of... actually, I guess the manifold thing felt pretty darn similar. Because you just point at the numbers. Yeah, come to think of it, does this feel any different at all when it's not in VR? It somehow feels different because it isn't a 3D space. But the controls are ultimately very similar to the mouse controls in the first game. So, that was my short time with Among Us 3D. And my final demo of day 1 was Demon Tides. In 3D. Take that, 3D audio users. I know that's not how 3D audio works. Don't get on my case. Anyway, we end Thursday with Demon Tides. I mean, yes, any Lena Rain soundtrack is 8D music. Oh no, not the lawyers. I was checking the music, and I think that song was just fading out. Okay, there we go. So Demon Tides is a 3D platforming open world game by Fabraz, the maker of Demon Turf. And yes, I do believe this is the same characters as Demon Turf, but in a new 3D game. It's supposed to be another in the genre of expressive platformer. So you might equate it to things like Penny's Big Breakaway would be a good example of another one. Or like, okay, you got this gigantic moveset, and so there's a myriad ways that you can get from place to place, and that's going to be up to you. So what I noticed about Demon Tides is the world is incredibly vertical. And so it's very easy to fall down and lose progress, which is where one of the game's key mechanics come in. And I might have had a better time with the demo had I remembered to use it. I remembered very near the end of my demo time that this mechanic existed, and I wish I had remembered it sooner, because it's clear that they intend for you to use it. You can set up a checkpoint flag anywhere. Like, you start climbing something, you want to put down a checkpoint flag where you'll be able to respawn or teleport to, then you can do that. Yes, I did get over it, actually. I got a few of the collectibles. Don't go Bennett Foddy on me. But, yeah, so you should be placing your checkpoint flag, because then, if you inevitably fall down from this incredibly vertical world, then you can just go back. Nope, can't say I did. And yeah, so there's definitely a bunch of moves, and they play very differently depending on the order in which you execute them. So, like, you have a midair dash, essentially. And you get one version of your move if you jump, dash, jump, but a completely different version if you jump, jump, dash. Yeah, one version is, like, slower and further, but the other is more like a dive. Like, depends on the situation. Like, are you trying to land precisely? You might want the slow one that you can stop. Are you trying to go for distance? You might want the quicker dive that will send you further faster. So this is definitely one of the games from the show that I've got my eye on. The one thing, and I told the people at the booth about this, and they seem to be aware, is the one thing I didn't like about the game was when you climb a ladder. Yeah, and I also know from the trailer that Demon Tides is going to have like a bunch of power-ups and stuff, which will further bolster your moveset. Your character can also transform into a snake, and so if you think back to Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury and how you've got that giant world on the water, and there's like different islands that you go to and stuff to get, and it's quicker to get between them because you have Plessy. Transforming into a snake is basically your Plessy. You move super fast, and that's how you get from one place to another. Okay, so the ladder climbing. No, it is not that problem, thankfully. The problem I have with ladder climbing is that when you reach the top of a ladder in this demo build, I will specify in this demo build, the full game is not out yet, and the developers seem to be aware of the problem I'm talking about. But I am keeping my eye on it. When you reach the top of a ladder, you don't just climb off the ladder like you would expect. Like you would expect up, 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 up. Okay, now I'm on the platform. Instead, it's up, 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 up. Stop. I'm stuck. I'm stuck. I'm stuck. I can't just press up on the control stick and finish climbing the ladder. I'm stuck on the ladder. So you have to jump. But when you jump away from the ladder. Like you don't jump. Like, it's not like you grab a ledge and you press the jump button to pull yourself up. It's like, oh, you actually end up jumping a little bit away from the ladder. And it makes me regret falling down and using the ladder to climb back up to where I was, even though it's like the tutorial level. And so I have to try and finagle my midair dash to get myself back on the platform because I fell down and climbed a ladder. But like I said, they seem to be aware of this problem, but I told it to them just in case. You know, the more you hear about something, the more important it'll be. So if that gets patched, then I'll basically have no complaints. At least as far as what was in the demo. Can't speak to the full game until that becomes a thing. And so, you may think that's the end of my Thursday because that was the final demo, but I did do one other thing on Thursday, and that was the Thursday night concert. God, remove the air dash. Don't see that happening. I went to the Thursday night concert, which was a return of like people who were at the first PAX. So there's this duo called Paul and Storm. And then they opened for Jonathan Coulton. If you're like, Jonathan Coulton, that's a familiar name. I don't remember what he does. He is probably best known in the Twitch circles for being the writer of Still Alive and Want You Back, the credit songs to the Portal games. And he performed Still Alive. He did his job. But most of the concert was original stuff, which was good. I mean, the cake is the cult, right? You eat the cake, you join the cult. That's how Portal works. That's my understanding of it anyway. Yeah, and then also he teamed up with Paul and Storm for a few songs near the end. Apparently they do a nerd cruise together. And there was a last-minute panel where you could do an AMA with them about their nerd cruise. I don't really know anything about that part, and I did not go to that panel, but... If you're looking to take a cruise and you're a nerd, you might consider the one that's run by Paul and Storm. God, the Paul and Storm songs were really funny. They were such a good opening. My friend Nova knew more about them than I did. This was my first time seeing them or hearing of them. And, like, they were in, like, video game reference songs. Not for the most part. But, like, there was some funny stuff in there. And that was Thursday at PAX. So, Friday. Friday, I don't have a panel. I line up nice and early for the showroom floor. Yes, correct. I was not a fan of the Pink Naval performance the year before. And also, these two were not rappers. They were acoustic guitar players and singers. But, I mean, being a rap act was not the issue. Being a bad rap act was the issue. To be clear. Anyway. So, neither of this year's acts really topped the Chipsel concert, though. That one is still my favorite performance of PAX out of any year so far. Because it just turns the main theater into a giant rave, and I am so into that genre. She had a great energy that easily top tier for PAX performances right there. If they brought back Chipsel, I would go again. So Friday, I don't have a panel, and I line up as soon as possible. You know, I'm up early. I am ready to camp out on the show floor and be near the front of the line so that I can hit all the important stuff that I'm supposed to hit. And so, of course, that meant trying to get into the Elden Ring Night Rain Dome. Now, at this point, I still didn't have all the information about the Elden Ring Night Rain Dome, so while I'm standing in line, people are talking about it, and that's when I find out it's not a playable demo. The advertising made me think that there was just going to be a playable Night Rain demo. I'm like, okay, the line's gonna be long, but I will pick a day and wait it out and report back to Chuck. Like, I was willing to do that. But it wasn't that. Yeah, day ring. So you had to go to that tent, and if you went to that tent, you got a ticket. Like a ticket to a movie. They were giving out tickets, a limited number of tickets for each hour. So if you were really fast in the morning, and I swear you had to be a jerk. Like, I was really close to the front of the line on that morning, and I went straight there, but I followed the rules. I foolishly followed the rules and decided to walk through the convention center instead of running or mowing people down. I mean, how dare I be a law-abiding model citizen? Because law-abiding model citizens don't get to watch Night Rain. Like, I went there. I went straight there. But I walked. And that was the problem. People were passing me, clearly violating the speed limit, in my opinion. But, rather than face consequences, they just get to, see the thing at the first showing. Oh, God. I don't know how I would have with that. Oh, God. I mean, yes, it was a speed issue, but it was deliberate. I was being a good person. So anyway, I get there. I'm offered a ticket for 5 p.m., but I have a dinner thing scheduled that day, so I don't take the ticket. If I was willing to be a bad friend, I could have taken that ticket and gone to, like, the 5 p.m. showing. But, part of the big reason I'm there is to hang out with friends who I don't usually get to see because it's all through Discord. And so, again, being a good person is kind of the theme here. I choose my friends. I just get out of the line. And, like, you know, at that point, it already felt less important because out of that giant audience of 75 people who get into each showing, and that's for the public, that is 75 minus the spaces that would be reserved for any media appointments or content creators or whatnot. So subtract a few spaces from that 75, and then you get maybe 50 something spots for each show. But among the 75 in that room, one person will get called up near the end of the hour-long showcase to actually play the thing. Like, it's not a guarantee. And so if I'm just gonna watch the developers talk about the game, I can wait until they post about it on socials. And then, like, Chuck gets the same experience that I do. Right? I don't think Chuck needed to hear me relay what is probably going to be used in advertising for the game anyway. So that's why I bailed on trying to do Night Rain. Like, if I had gotten into that first showing, I would have done it. But I just had other stuff going on, so I didn't want to commit to a later ticket. So anyway, that's when day 2 turned into knock most of the demos off the list. So the Night Rain Dome is right next to the Marvelous booth. So while I played Rune Factory on Thursday, I did the other 3 games on Friday, right after leaving the Dome. And I started with The Big Catch. So The Big Catch is at the Marvelous booth. They're publishing it, and this is an upcoming platformer where it's all about using your fishing rod for various purposes. Yeah, I mean, look how many demos I was able to get through in the time that I could have spent waiting for Night Rain or just sitting in a dome watching Night Rain. So, Big Catch. I will admit, there's not much guidance, at least in the part of the game that I got to play in the demo. It was a little unclear what to do, and the staff had to kind of nudge me a bit on some stuff, because otherwise I would have just been stuck in place. So I hope that in the full version of the game, things are explained properly. I just assumed that they put me in a later area so that it would be a bit more open and that I could play around more with stuff in the game, because I know that's a choice you gotta make. If you just demo the tutorial, then you might not be showing the true essence of the game. So your demo might take place a little later, just to give the player a taste of, like, this is what you should really expect when the game gets going. So I do think it's a case of that. But in my time with that demo, I got to use my fishing rod as a grappling hook. Kind of like in Another Crab's Treasure, actually. Where you just kind of aim it at a grapple point, and then you go like... Phew! I also got to use it to ride some creatures. And that was the part I got stuck on. There were these turtle things. I assumed they were just enemies that I needed to beat up, but they wouldn't die. And then the staff told me that if I jumped on one, I could ride it across the water. And that the reason you would beat it up is just to stun it for that purpose. So, okay, I ride it across the water, and then I climb an area using my grappling fishing hook. I didn't play the demo of Another Crab, so I don't have that answer. When I played Another Crab, I just played full thing on Game Pass. And then I climbed to the top, and then that brought me to this, like, more open 3D area. And, It seems like the main goal of the game is to collect these fish that are wandering around. Which, I mean, oh my god, a fishing rod? You have to collect fish? What? But there were like a few that I found in this overworld area. And they'll run from you, so you gotta corner them and beat them up and then use your fishing rod to hook them. So it seemed like that was the main collectible, and that's how this is gonna play out. It's a 3D collect-a-thon. You go around, you reach places with your fishing rod, and then you collect the fish. Yeah, Mondo's mind is blown. Aiming the grappling hook felt a little finicky, but not to the point that I think it's a bad game. So that was the big catch. Then it went to Story of Seasons, and this was another case where they were like, we have 2 demos, which one do you want to play? So I opted, instead of the farming, I opted for the Bazaar demo. There's a remake of a DS game, and I guess the main mechanic is that you collect stuff and sell it at the bazaar. And you can make money and friends that way. So it's a cute game. I like the updated style for it. You have a gliding leaf, which doesn't really seem to serve a clear purpose right now, but I mean, I could use it as I was walking around town. And the bazaar, you set up your shop. You can try and attract people. You get these little thought bubbles so you can see what people are looking for and adjust your inventory on the fly within the time limit that you have. Like, if you sell out of something, you can put a new item there, or if you just change your mind, you're like, I'm gonna take this item off the shelf and replace it with this other thing that lady clearly wants. So there was a bit of that for the management side of things. But it was pretty quick. Like, you know, I could see myself getting into that. There were a bunch of quests scattered around the bazaar. So you either had to farm stuff up for people, or collect it, or find something that they lost, you know, etc. Let's see. Was that it for that game? I guess that's all I have to say about that game. Why do I feel like I'm missing something? Oh, got it. Came back to me. The interface for menus, it's really well handled. Talking Story of Seasons. Grand Bazaar. So I gotta give the game credit for having a very simple, easy enough to use inventory system. Like, this could have been an easy flop, but you've got your main inventory of like stuff you're actively carrying, and then because you're managing a shop, you're gonna need to be able to control what do you want from your inventory to go into storage? What do you want to put out for sale at the shop right now? And yeah, I was very grateful for some of the button options that they give you on that menu. So there is a dedicated button that lets you move an item that you're hovering over from one box to the other box. So if you are opening shop and they're like, what items do you want to put in your shop? Then you'll have the shop on one side and your inventory on the other side. If you hover over an item in your inventory and you press X, then that item immediately gets put onto the shop side. You don't have to click and drag it. I think you can if you want to, but you don't have to click and drag it. And then there's also, because your items get piled up, like maybe you're carrying 20 eggs, but you only want to sell 10 of them. There is another button that activates split. So you press the Y button when you're on your 20 eggs, and it'll pull up a sub menu and you pick how many eggs you want to remove from the pile, and it creates a new pile of eggs with that number, and you can put that in an empty slot. And then if you need to send that separate pile over to the other screen, then you use the send button. And like it was great. It was quick and seamless. All inventory management should learn from this game. So there we go. I knew there was something I liked about it that I was forgetting to say, and I'm glad I remembered that. And then I just did the final demo at the Marvelous booth to finish the stamp rally, and that was a game called Twilight Peaks. Yes, all games, including that one, should learn from Story of Seasons. Grand Bazaar. Maybe the other Story of Seasons games were like that already, so I'm sorry if I'm just like a newcomer who's praising stuff that they've been doing for a long time, but like, it was good. Do you mean Twilight Peaks or Story of Seasons when you ask about the princesses? Because the last Marvelous game that I played was Twilight Peaks. Maybe. Is this some reference to the Twilight series of books / movies? I haven't read those. Oh God, Twilight Princess. It just hit me. I can be slow sometimes. I did not encounter a princess in the Twilight Peaks demo, but I did encounter women. Right. I definitely flew to the city that I drove to, for sure. So Twilight Peaks is... It's an upcoming game. It's still very early right now. I don't know when it's coming out. But they decided to show it. It's definitely been shown at some indie showcases sometime in the last couple years. But it's like Gothic Stardew Valley. Like, hey, here's a cute little town, but it's got like vampires and monsters and stuff. But they're all like, you know, Animal Crossing cutified. So that you'll actually like want to engage with them. So like, you're a vampire. And there was another woman who was like a demon or something. Yeah, like the biggest thing about it was I was very struck by the juxtaposition between the in-game cutesy model and the character portrait. And I know that character portraits historically look more detailed and different from in-game models in a highly stylized game, but it was such a stark difference, and it didn't feel like they fit together at all. I could probably find a screenshot somewhere to show what I'm talking about. But yeah, you do a lot of the same stuff that you would do in Stardew Valley. Like, you can cut the grass with your scythe, or you can mine rocks with your pickaxe and sell stuff in your chest. And, like, you're trying to build up your farm. But, again, the main hook is supposed to be that it's Halloween-y. You know, it's all monsters and stuff. So there's a certain charm to the aesthetic, and I understand why some people would be into it. Like, you know, it's very purple as a base color. And so, like, you get items that you probably wouldn't get in other games like Stardew Valley. Because, again, the main thing is Gothic architecture, right? So you should expect spikes or thorny stuff or, you know, maybe even some creepy stuff that's been cutified. Like, I don't know, I could imagine skeletons or coffins or other such things being used as decorations. So yeah, it was a very short demo. I really just kind of messed around in the opening area, like imagine day one of Stardew Valley. I bought a flower arch. Or rather, I crafted one, I should say. I didn't buy one. I made a flower arch and I put it in front of the door to my house. The game does cleverly get around certain animations because of the fact that you're a vampire and you essentially teleport. So, like, if your character is about to sit in a chair, then, like, instead of animating it, it's like, poof, and now you're in the chair. So, maybe that's a point of detraction for some people, but, I mean, I get it, because you're a vampire. It at least keeps things quick. So, I'm sure we'll see more of that game and more like, what's that one? Like, we'll probably see it in a wholesome direct come E3 season. Not E3 season. Because it'll probably be updated by then. Alright, so I did the marvelous poof. Alright, and that is where I stopped keeping careful track of what I did and did not do on each given day. So I know that I hit up most of the other demos on day 2. So now I'm just going to go down the list of demos and be like, did I do that on day 2? Here we go. Gimmiko. Gimmiko I did play. It's a tough game. It's real hard. I don't see myself actively going out to buy it. It's cute. I get what it's going for. So for those unaware, this was another Bass-Ackwards suggestion. And, similar to Vampire Survivors, you have a horde of enemies coming at you from all directions, and you need to fight them off. But in Gimmiko, you kick around a dice. And that dice is a projectile weapon that will do damage to the enemies it hits, but it will also land on something, and you have to equip the 6 sides of the dice in between waves, or before a wave starts. You can, in between waves, you can go to the shop, you can buy stuff that you can put on each of the 6 faces of the die. Although I think other characters might have more or less faces to work with, because there were a few characters. Oh yeah, no, this is Gimmiko. That's how it's spelled. Because gimmick. So yeah, you equip each of the die faces with some sort of attack. Like I could equip bees and then attack with bees. Yeah, some of the games I talk about there will be Steam demos available for, if there aren't already. So you might be able to form your own opinion. But yeah, Vampire Survivors, but you have to kick around the die and you have to decide how you want to equip the die, is my oversimplification of things. There is also... I spent a good chunk of my demo time playing the hidden solitaire game. There was just like an option hidden away with a person talking to me on the pause menu, and it's just like, want to play solitaire? And then it just opens an entire other thing of solitaire. And I was waiting for the demo person to be like, what are you doing? Why are you not playing the actual game? But maybe they didn't care, or maybe they didn't see. I don't know, but the solitaire part was funny. Kajora was nearby because it was the same publisher. So I know that I went from Gimiko straight over to Kajora. I don't know how long the demo was that you previously saw, but it seemed like I was playing pretty early in the game. And it's very slow. It reminds me of a game. I haven't played this, but at least stylistically and vibe-wise, it's got a Crayon Shin-chan thing going on. Oh, okay. So I definitely played for more than 5 minutes. They did have a longer demo then. I was like, I wasn't sure how far the one that you saw got to, so I wasn't sure if it would be longer or not at PAX, but yeah, it was substantially longer than 5 minutes, definitely. In fact, I didn't even play all the demo that I could have. So the main gameplay and what I played was like, okay, you're playing with your friends, and then something happens. And so like the first part of the demo is fix the water pump, because someone is using a water pump and it's broken because number one, there's stuff on top of the hose, and number two, there's a rip somewhere that needs to be tied up. So using your two friends' abilities, you can get the boxes off the hose and tie up the rip part. And so the main gameplay, at least from what I gathered, is in different situations, you need to summon one of your two friends. And you do that by like holding a button and then pressing left or right. And so each friend has two abilities, one tied to the left direction and one tied to the right direction. And so depending which friend you summon and in which direction you summon them, they can do one of their special abilities, like boosting you up to get to a higher ledge, or shooting a projectile from a slingshot to clear away something in the way, like a flock of birds, for example. Like push this object because you're stronger than me. So it's about trying to work in tandem with your friends to accomplish some relatively simple tasks. It did feel a little awkward to summon them using the controls, but I think I would get used to it given enough time. And then the crazy stuff happens. And I would say I won't spoil it, but I don't know what I could possibly spoil because I don't understand what happened. Like, the crazy stuff happened. Things take a turn after a certain point in the demo. So I will say the demo ended when me and the other two kids had to follow the blood trail. And I played a little past that blood trail, and I had to do a stealth section, and that's where I stopped playing the demo. But, yeah, the tone definitely shifted. I feel like that's a hint at what the game is going for. Like, these kids are gonna see some stuff, and it's gonna mess them up. That one. Ultimate Sheep Raccoon. Let's talk Ultimate Sheep Raccoon. This is the upcoming sequel to Ultimate Chicken Horse, and this time the characters are on bikes, and they do bike tricks. The gameplay loop is very similar to the first game. You know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So you still take turns selecting obstacles or platforms from whatever inventory pops up and then placing them on the map with the goal of trying to be able to reach the goal or hinder your opponents from being able to reach the goal, because, you know, reaching the goal gets you points. That's not the only way to earn points. You can also do air tricks to get points. That's a nice little boost. Of course, the risk there is that you've got to be able to land on your bike. So, you know, if you're too trick happy, you might ruin your landing and then lose all the points altogether because you died. And then the developers told us as we played our round of the game that big new addition to Ultimate Sheep Raccoon is power-ups. So sometimes instead of selecting a platform or an obstacle, you will instead select a power-up. And these can help you get around the obstacles, of course. One power-up, for example, was a double jump. Like, hey, now you can reach that higher-up platform. There were 3 maps available in the demo. We only got to play 1, because we just played a full game from start to finish. Yes, a double jump on a bike. Don't overthink it. I mean, your bike has a regular jump by default, so... But yeah, it seems at least equally as fun as the previous game. The power-ups are definitely gonna change things a little bit. Because now, like, all that work you put in placing stuff, someone might just be able to navigate around it. And then you have to adjust. Because once you pick a power-up, you keep it for the rest of the game. I should probably mention that. Like, if a power-up comes up in round 4 and the game goes on for, say, 10 rounds, then rounds 5 through 10, you've still got that power. By the way, are there any clarifying questions on any game I've talked about so far that I feel unanswered? Oh yeah, I definitely saw one game of Ultimate Sheep Raccoon where someone was... someone basically went from last to first in 2 rounds. It wasn't instant. It wasn't like the final round decided everything. But like the last 2 or 3 rounds, they really made a comeback very quickly. Alright, now Windswept. Windswept is amazing. might be my favorite game of the show this year. I definitely see the Donkey Kong Country inspiration with the 2 animals and the fact that they have little boosting abilities with each other. It's very cute. There was one part of the demo. The demo started you in level 1. You could play a few levels in the demo, not just the first one. But I was watching someone... Yep, the Turtle Duck game. I can confirm Turtle Duck game is great. And, like, out of the games in the show, probably the first one I would buy, given the opportunity. And I think that's got a Steam demo, too. I might be wrong about that. But there was one part of the tutorial level where you're supposed to kick the turtle shell a la Mario and then bounce off of it to reach a higher ledge. And people were having trouble with that part, but I got it first try. So, just saying. It is so cute. I love that the turtle can swim. At one point, I just fell in the water on a level with a bunch of waterfalls. And then I realized the turtle could swim because, of course, the turtle can swim. And, oh, man. And that was also the game I recommended to people on Wednesday night. Like I showed your list to some people on Wednesday night when they were asking like what I was planning to play at the show. And they had heard of most of the games on the list. Like it was already on their radar, but that was the one where they were like, oh, that's here. They're like, okay, we got to check that one out. So like, you know, hopefully the word of mouth marketing is doing it some good. Cause like, I feel like we will, well, we don't know if it comes out this year, right? If it came out this year, we'd definitely say we're probably talking about it at the end of the year. Although there are a bunch of games I still need to play that we will probably be talking about at the end of the year. And that was most of the backwards suggestions, except for the ones that I did on day 3. I skipped over the ones I did on day 3. And now back to Nick. Oh, Nick. Okay. Let's start with the good one that Nick suggested, which was Behemoth the game. And then, backwards, you also chimed in with Alien Hominid Invasion, and they were right next to each other, so I did try both. So, the Behemoth booth was set up with arcade cabinets. These games are available on Steam and console, and I'm sure they've got button controls on those. But this was an arcade cabinet version. And, that made it something. Yes, the game has a lot of chickens in it. And you have to bring the chickens to their nests, and it's like an endless score runner thing. But yeah, it was an arcade cabinet, and because it's like one button control, you had a little stick. You had a little stick on the left side, and you could move it left, right, up, down to move the character. Or, but for flapping your wings, they just had a giant paddle. And so you just had to press down on the paddle to flap. Flap, 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 flap. Like, it became this whole tactile thing. And like, honestly, I can't imagine playing it on Steam after playing with that paddle. But it was fun, and that is certainly a way to show off a game that is already released. Because I'm pretty sure the game is already out. Like, if you're gonna show a game that's already out, giving it a whole new control scheme specific to the show floor is certainly a way to do that. Oh yeah, isn't it like $3? Yeah, and that's just good. It's a simple arcade-style game where you go for the score, and then that's it. You keep playing it. So, like, you know, it's hard not to recommend it if you like arcade-type games. It's very frantic, as Behemoth games tend to be. And that also goes for Alien Hominid Invasion, which also had an arcade cabinet set up, although there were multiple buttons because you had shoot, dodge, jump, interact, and mutation. All set to arcade buttons. And this one was a 2-player co-op game, and it was also pretty score attack focused. You go around trying to complete missions while getting progressively more and more invaded by aliens. And so I played as a dinosaur, and I had a missile launcher. That was neat. I liked shooting missiles at stuff. Again, very frantic. There is a lot going on screen at any given time. But it was pretty neat to play co-op with someone. We had a good time. Maybe even bonded a little. Just went from complete strangers to arcade besties. I don't know the guy's name or anything, and I'm not saying I made a new friend out of this, but I mean, we were both content with the game. Yeah, true. Personality. So yeah, they had it. The booth was neat. I'm glad that they did something unique by going the arcade cabinet route. It made it much more fun as an in-person experience. And hey, you can check out their games available now. All right, time to yell at Nick. I know he's not here. But I don't know, maybe we'll clip this part and send it to him or whatever. But my God, Nick, I know you put a kappa on this suggestion because you knew it was a bad suggestion. But man, I have seen the dystopian future. I have seen it, and I hate it. Mondo, you know what I'm about to put on the screen. Nick, in all his wisdom, suggested that, you know, for science, that I have to at least look at the AI game. I looked at it. Anyway, this is the NPC that is controlled by AI in a game called AI 2U. Which, can we start with the fact that you're naming your game after the gimmick of using AI? Like, this is a game that has no merits as a game. It has to be a showpiece for AI NPC technology. So they just go all in and call it AI2U. And I'm like, you're just admitting you don't have a game. Nope, not to be confused with AI the Somnium Files. Definitely not. That is an actual game that does not use the Earth-killing AI technology to make a quote-unquote game. Although it does also feature an anime-style character. Maybe even one with cat ears. I don't know. But yeah, this is just some random game made by some random company called Alterstaff. And they had a booth there, and they're like, yeah, the first game of its kind with an AI NPC that you collaborate with. Mondo, you don't need to convince me. I am not gonna try and convince anyone that AI needs to be in games like this. Yeah, well, trying to have like the issue here is that you have a character controlled by AI, and they're trying to tout it as a good thing and be like, you can interact with it, and the experience will be different every time you play. And like, let me tell you, no, none of these claims are true. At least not in the current build, and I don't expect they will become any more true as they work on the game. Kinda hoping the game doesn't even see the light of day in a full state, but no, I'm not that optimistic. Anyway, a coworker of mine made a great point about this game when I described what it was, as I was talking about PAX at work. This is an escape room game. It's an escape room. And so, to their point, the whole genre of escape room is like, you want to puzzle things out. You want to figure it out yourself. You don't need a companion who is watching you at all times to give you hints about the game. Yeah, so like, for one thing, it doesn't even make sense for the genre, because if you're playing an escape room game, you are probably going in expecting to have to think through things for yourself. But instead, they're like, here is your AI buddy. Ask her questions. And so I saw one person. I saw one person doing this demo. I looked over their shoulder. They chose to play this demo. And let me be very clear. I could tell that English was not their first language. And so they were already having trouble trying to type out instructions for what they want to ask or tell the AI. Yeah, like they were spelling words wrong and stuff, and so like I'm pretty sure just English wasn't their first language, so that's not on them, obviously. So they were already struggling, and they got to a puzzle where you had to rotate some tiles to fix the electrical power on the spaceship. All right, fine, a tile puzzle. That's a thing. That's at least an idea for a game, I guess. Been done plenty of times, but let's ignore that. They're stuck on this puzzle. And that's fine. People will get stuck on puzzles. That's fine. So they actually try and use the AI as the developer encouraged them to do. Like, you have your AI assistant. You can talk to it. You can ask it stuff. So they're trying to play along with the game as intended. And they're legitimately stuck on this puzzle. They gave it a few tries and they're like, I need some help on this. And you know what the AI tells them to do? Fix the electrical power. That's the only response they get. And they try multiple times. Like, they're trying to fix the electrical power. They have been unsuccessful at fixing the electrical power. They're asking how to fix the electrical power, or for at least a little more information or a hint or something. They're trying in multiple ways to refine the prompt. Fix the electrical power. It's on the second floor. Like, your main feature isn't working as advertised. So, if we ignore the fact that AI is just... that generative AI like this is just not a good idea for games in the first place, or for a lot of other stuff, actually. If we ignore all that somehow, very hard to ignore that, then you couldn't make it work. Your main selling point doesn't work as advertised. I feel like that should be your hint. Anyway, the game touts multiple endings for each escape room depending on how you interact with your AI NPC. And the ending that I saw most people get was pissing her off so that she sends a monster after you to kill you. I swear 90% of the people at that booth must have gotten this ending. I also saw it say stuff like that someone got lost because there's no map and you're supposed to find a certain room on this spaceship for one of the escape rooms. So someone was trying to find where they were supposed to go. They were asking the AI and it was like, go upstairs. But then the person was like, where are the stairs? And then she's like, what? The second floor is up the stairs. And she was also saying stuff like, I will show you how to reach it. But also it's a hologram that's stuck in place. It can't actually move around and show you anything. So you're waiting for it to do what it says it's going to do. And then when you keep asking it similar questions because it's not properly answering your first one, it gets pissed off and murders you. So that is my rant on the AI game. Thank you, Nick, for the suggestion. I mean, it is actually a pretty solid plastic. Yeah, so like it's where like they're actively trying to use it and saying that it's going to improve the game, but they're also like aware of like the dystopian element of it and are somehow trying to lean into that at the same time. But like you can't have your cake and eat it too. Yes, I will. And that was every demo. Wait, hold on. No, it was. Ooh, surprise demo. One that was not suggested to me. There was another demo on day 3. This is why I have a pile of stuff over here that I got from the booths. To remind me of stuff like this. Alright, so surprise multiplayer game. At a past PAX, I played a Smash Brothers-like game with indie characters. I believe that was called Framemakers. And that had, like, Octodad and other such characters in there and a bunch of assist trophies and stuff. Well, this time we have a different game taking up the Smash mantle. May I introduce Royalty Free for All. Royalty Free for All is our Smashlight. And it uses royalty-free characters. Like, these are custom, personalized interpretations of characters like Oliver Twist, who is a Twisty Vine character in this game. Sir Lancelot is another character. And like, there was a pretty decent sized list. But yeah, it's your platform fighter, and it's royalty-free characters, and well, no, Sir Lancelot actually is a knight with a lance, not just the lance itself, but here you can see a couple characters on the back of this card, along with the There is a QR code there where I think you can find it on Steam or something. And the camera's not doing a great job of focusing. But I played as the dog up there. Yes, he Lance is alive. In this picture, you can see the same dog that I played as doing the down special, which is dropping the doghouse on people. Kind of like the fire hydrant move in Pac-Man's moveset. All right, links. Let's see if this works. All right, maybe it's a slash command. Yeah, Zeldas are fine. I was trying to remember how to permit someone to post a link. And I'm not seeing like a command pop up. Oh, wait, maybe I can just copy it and post it since I'm the streamer. There we go. I solved the problem. So yeah, it's there on Steam. And that was pretty fun. I almost wish I had gone back and played more matches on it to get a more full impression. But I was trying to hit everything. Do I have any other surprise demos in this bag of mine? I got this little booklet from Critical Reflex. And that's the publisher where I played Kajora. And I played one more of their games, but it was on day 4. All right, here's the page for Gimmicko. Oh, okay. Yep. I thought I was missing another demo. Surprise demo number 2. Nocturne, being touted as a story RPG with rhythm combat. This one does have a Steam demo. You can play the same demo that I did. It is slated for 2026. But it's named Nocturne after night music. Yeah, so I didn't get to see much of the story in the demo that I played, but you go around. There are no random encounters, so whenever you run into an enemy, you start rhythm combat. So yeah, I didn't see enough to make a fair judgment on the story. It wasn't really prevalent in the demo. But I did make sure to get into a few rhythm battles, and because I'm me, I played the difficulty, with the difficulty set to the second highest. Yeah, it's basically Guitar Hero. For the combat, you use 4 keys on the keyboard. You've got your lanes. You might have to press, you might have to hold. Maybe some other stuff gets introduced later, but the thing is, just hitting the notes is not enough to defeat the enemy. You also have to actually attack the enemy with the spacebar. And there's a timing to it. The enemy will periodically attack you during the song. So if you have charged up an attack by hitting notes, then you can unleash it whenever. But ideally, you're going to unleash it when it's in the middle of its own attack animation to interrupt it and land a counterattack. So you got to pay attention to the enemy's movements while also, you know, the actual rhythm part. And there was a bunch of difficulty options that you could pick from. They were all available in the demo. I played on Expert, which was the second highest option. I think there was at least 5 base options and then a just play for the story kind of difficulty option. And yeah, the one part that annoyed me slightly, yeah, there are 4 keys on the keyboard. I thought I was just going to take my piano hand and put my 4 fingers on the 4 keys and then, you know, do really well because it would be like playing the piano. I swear that they must have done this on purpose. I told them that they were evil for doing this as soon as I was done playing the demo. The keys that you press are D, F, H, G. Wait, sorry. D, F, H, J. Notice how there is a G key in between the F and H keys that you don't press. So it's like they deliberately want you to be using 2 fingers from each hand, as opposed to the 4 fingers on one hand. Yeah, so I think it would be like index and middle finger on the keys and then thumb on the spacebar so that you can do your attack. Yeah, I was hoping that I could do the 4 keys with my right hand and then like the space bar with my left hand or something to that effect so that it would be more like the piano, and I feel like I would have had a smoother time that way, but I guess it at least adds a flavor of challenge. I suppose it might be remappable since it's on Steam and all. That's a little bit of a reach on my keyboard to get the thumb on the spacebar for that remap. Anyway, finally, surprise demo number 3. Which I think is the last surprise demo that I have. This is Pit Puzzle. Boop-a-doop-a-doop. This game is wishlistable. It's a puzzle fighting game. So the closest comparison they made was Puyo Puyo, which is not a great comparison once you actually played the game. But yeah, it's a one-on-one Puyo Puyo sort of game, kind of, where you're trying to build up block combinations of the same color. The thing that makes it different from Puyo Puyo is that just making a group of the same color will not clear the blocks. I repeat, will not. You could stack like a bajillion orange blocks together and they'll just combine into bigger orange blocks. They will not be cleared until you get a round gem of the same color and get that to touch the pile you've made. That is the difference. I failed to understand this when I played the demo, so I lost pretty badly because I felt like I was doing a good job setting up a chain Puyo Puyo style using the method where you stack them up and then you stagger it and then you do the color next to it. And like, there's a name for that method in Puyo Puyo. I was using that thinking I'm going to get such a good chain. And then none of my blocks were going away because I didn't know about the round thing. But yeah, you do that. Each character has their own special ability that you can use. So, you still actually have reasons to like pick a main or something in this game. So it's a neat idea. I don't know that there's enough game there for me to be like, not my favorite demo of the event. Maybe I'm just saying that because I lost. But, I saw Puzzle Fighter and I'm like, I like puzzles. I'd probably do better at it than Smash, at least. All right, finally, let's talk about day 3. I actually ended up leaving pretty early on day 4. Because after day 3, I felt like I did everything I wanted to do. So there's not going to be a day 4 conversation. But day 3. Is when I hit, other than Night Rain, I hit every other thing on the list. So, for one thing, we got Altered Alma. Altered Alma, yeah. And I will say, I played a demo of this the year before. Like, I recognized the name when it was suggested to me this year, but it is an updated demo. It's absolutely further along, and I got to play further into the game this time. So, the main advertising point is it's a Metroidvania with dating sim elements. But to me, like, this time I did get to see the dating sim elements, at least. Okie dokie. So I got to see one of the possible relationships a little bit. And it was like just the first level of it. But, you talk to people, you respond to things that they say, and they will approve of your answers or not approve of your answers. That whole typical thing that you do with NPCs. And so you can raise your relationship level with other people. And I guess if you get far enough into the game and far enough on a particular NPC's level, then you can romance them. Yeah, otherwise, Alma is like pretty classic in terms of Metroidvania. You go around the map, there are obstacles, you need to unlock abilities to get through the obstacles. And the main ability that I got to play with in this round of the demo was the throwable dagger. You unlock this dagger, you can throw it, and then you teleport to wherever it lands. And so this had a few applications, and yes, you can throw it in midair. So one of the first applications that I saw used for it was, here's a really long gap, and there's a ceiling above you. You're going to keep throwing your dagger, and it's going to get lodged in the ceiling. And as you throw it diagonally into the ceiling over and over again, you'll cross the gap. And then they play around with this dagger a lot more because they start introducing environmental things that will interact with the dagger in different ways. So you toss the dagger into this shiny red thing on the wall, and oh, that's a teleporter, actually. So instead of teleporting to where the dagger went, you teleport to the other side of the teleporter. Or, oh, there's a dash pad in midair. When you toss your dagger into that, it's going to follow the dash pad. Like, loop. Like, let's say you got a dash pad going. It's so hard with mirrored cameras. Let's say the dash pad is going this way. You throw your dagger into that dash pad. It follows the dash pad, and then you teleport to where that lets out. That did lead me to the one bug that the developer was aware of in the game. They are, of course, still working on this. And they were aware of exactly one glitch, and I found it. I showed the guy that I had glitched the game, and he was like, oh, you found the one spot where that happens. Congratulations. And so it was a glitch where I fell into a pit, I respawned, and I couldn't move. So they'll be working on that. But I really liked the dagger. It felt good, quick, responsive. Yeah, I mean, like I said, they already knew about that bug before I found it, so I just got unlucky. Demon School is a tactics RPG. And at first, I was like, wait a minute, I did a thing, and there was no animation for it. Why was there no animation for it? And then I found out that in this one, you have a planning phase, and the idea is that when you're making selections on the grid, you're just planning out what's going to happen, and then all the animations play out back to back when you end your turn. I was like, oh, I get it now. They're doing like combos and stuff, because like this person kicked the enemy that way, and then this person shot fire at it, and then it died, and then, you know, like it just keeps going. So it was really neat to see. Let's see. I was trying to get through as much of the demo as I could, so I didn't read everything as intently as I possibly could have to fully understand the attack mechanics and stuff, but I got through the demo. I did beat it. That was good. There was also the in-between battles, going around talking to people, getting some story. I don't have full context for the story because I was kind of in the middle of things, as some demos are. But yeah. Seems like it could be a decent time. We've got the Transylvania Adventure of Simon Quest. I played that one on day 3, and I mean, it is what it says it is. I'm not really sure how much I can comment on this one. Like, it's a side-scrolling, classic Castlevania type game. You've got the Castlevania sub-weapons, like the Arcane Axe and the cross that boomerangs and comes back to you. You got your whip. I do believe the castle goes Vania, yes. I also think this game is already out. I forget. I think if you like the classic Castlevanias, then the answer to that question is yes. And I don't have a ton of experience in that area. I mean, I liked what I played of 4, apart from the part where it felt kind of cheap in places. But it's an older game. I don't think this game is going to suffer from that too much. Let's see. Oh, it's not. Okay, I saw a bunch of console logos above the demo station, and I thought they were saying it was out for those. Something I did not know is that they're working on an Angry Video Game Nerd 8-bit video game, because that was at the demo station right next to this one. And I have no emotional connection to that. I didn't watch that series or anything, but it's a thing that will exist, I guess. And then at the demo station, they were also selling Blu-ray copies of the Angry Video Game Nerd movie, because of course they were. Yeah, he's definitely had stuff before. I think there was also one based on the movie. So yeah, if you want a polished take on if you want a polished modern take on what the classic side-scrolling Castlevanias were, then I can definitely recommend Transylvania Simon Quest game. I didn't have any issues with it, and so I think that's a pretty good testament to the fact that, like, it didn't feel cheap, it felt responsive. It felt like I was playing an older game, even though I definitely wasn't, because otherwise I would have had cheap deaths everywhere, so... There was that. And then the final game that got recommended to me was Nick saying that I should check out a game called Sirens. What I did not know, I had a very hard time finding this game, because I didn't know this very simple fact about it. Nick recommended something from the tabletop section, which is not a bad thing, mind you. I just didn't realize that he made a tabletop recommendation. And so I was getting results for, like, Sirens on Steam, and, like, where is it? I don't see it here. The publisher is not at PAX. I was very confused why he thought I wanted to be a demon mermaid hunting other creatures in the sea. But no, Sirens is a tabletop card game where you construct a piece of music using the available cards. So I can see why he thought it would be up my alley. So it was actually part of an entire booth where they were selling a few different card games in the same style, not all about music, but they're all single-player or two-player competitive card games that are supposed to be quick, decently simple. So I bought that one and a couple of their other ones, and now they're in my classroom game storage in case I need... Yeah, like if one or two students finish something early and I don't have something for them to do, then they can play the game where they have to, you know, think strategically about using their cards. But I bought Sirens, I bought a terrain building one, and I also bought one called Debug or Decrypt or something. And it, like, uses programming language, and we've got a pretty good number of kids interested in computer science at my school, so I feel like they'd get a kick out of that, and it would be a nice little refresher for them to make sure they understand some of the core principles, because they'll show up on the cards. So thanks, Nick. That was an unexpected find for sure, but I do appreciate it. Because yeah, for those who don't know, PAX is like 50% tabletop. Like, all the console's my main focus. It's what I'm into. But you got like video games on one side and tabletop games on the other side, and sometimes I've been known to venture onto the tabletop side sometimes. Yeah, I think some of our kids have used Scratch. But we actually have like a dedicated computer science teacher. So he certainly gets more into the weeds than I do, but was just looking for something for kids to do if they need to kill time that I can at least say is educational. Yeah, in past years at PAX, I've done more on the tabletop side. The very first time I went to PAX, I got invited by a random stranger to a tabletop session. It was pretty D&D-esque, but it was a one-shot format called The Ground Itself. And we all just sat around for a couple hours improving. Somehow I don't think that's how that works. Especially since my admission was covered by the event itself for doing the panels. I guess I should finally get to the end of day 3 then, because there was a second panel. Yeah, I'm not sure if everyone was totally aware. We were not totally aware until fairly last minute. Yeah, see, Shell Shock submitted their own pitch for a panel. It was Nintendo Switch Send-Off, thanks for the memories. And they invited me to be a part of it, along with Silver and 112, the Mega Man subreddit moderator, and Rick DeSellis from the D-Pad channel. That was the 5 of us on that panel. I was happy to be invited. But thing is, the panel got waitlisted after the initial application, and so it was very close to PAX itself when we all found out that actually you're off the waitlist, and this panel is happening on Saturday at 9 p.m. So that is that's neat. Was nice to be accepted. So yeah, we had been chatting and planning for that. And I gotta say, that panel went well. Things just went very smoothly. It was a bigger turnout than the Labo panel. Number 1, it was Saturday. Number 2, there were less panels happening at the same time. And number 3, it was a more broad topic like Nintendo Switch as opposed to a more niche topic like Nintendo Labo. So it was about half full in the theater, but it was also a bigger theater. So half full is like respectable. Very much so. And so I'm sure they're going to get the VOD for that up when they're able. We recorded that just like I did with the Labo panel, except I don't think anything was lost at the end of the recording. And it was a look back at 8 years of the Switch and like what made it special, what were the standouts from the generation. And we decided to take a different approach with Q&A at the end of the panel. We decided, okay, we might have some time left over after talking about everything, so we're going to leave the option open for Q&A. But instead of bringing people to the mic, we made a QR code for a Google form. And at the beginning of the panel, we let people scan it and submit questions. So during the last 10 minutes of the panel, we pulled up questions from the Google form, and we could just pick some of the ones we were interested in answering or that we had enough time to answer. So it went very smoothly. It weeded out anyone who was going to hog the mic or anyone who was going to ask a question that didn't belong there. Because there was at least one question in that list that we felt like it just didn't fit with what we were talking about at the panel. So once Shell Shock gets the VOD out, I will put it in a playlist on my channel. That like the VOD should be on their channel. It was their panel after all. But I will link it through my channel on a playlist with the other panels because I can now make a playlist as soon as the Labo 2 VOD is done. I can make a playlist that is PAX East panels and it can have 3 videos in it. There wasn't a good place to force in a mention of Sushi Striker. I wanted to. It was actively on my mind. I was like, how can I work Sushi Striker into this? And unfortunately, I did not come up with something that would naturally fit into the panel itself. I did rep Labo, though. I mentioned Labo no less than 3 times during the panel that was not exclusively about Labo. But it was for the Switch, so it counted. So yeah, that was a fun time. Now, the reason that we ended up settling on the QR code thing, you know, that wasn't the initial idea or anything. Usually you just tell people to line up at the Q&A mic. But it was kind of inspired by the fact that we went to a different panel earlier in the week. I believe this was also part of my Thursday schedule, and I forgot to mention it then. But we did go to the Kit and Krista podcast panel. They did one of their podcast episodes live as a panel. And the episode, they talked a bit about their time in Boston, what they had seen at PAX so far, and then did a top 10 Switch games for each of them. But they had a Q&A at the end, and we were inspired by the fact that someone absolutely hogged the mic for way too long at their panel. Like, they took their sweet time. Of course, they just had to mention that they're an up-and-coming Nintendo content creator themselves in the lead-up to the question that they asked, and most of us agree it wasn't a particularly great question, even at the end. Oh, but you haven't heard the best part. Which is, by best part, I mean the worst part. This guy, I was at a meetup with some friends. And the same guy shows up to that meetup, reintroduces himself, and the person next to me at the meetup decides to actually look up his channel. Because, I mean, that's a reasonable thing to do, right? If you don't know about the previous thing. So, you know, like, if you're meeting the person for the first time and they just briefly mention that they have a channel, it would make sense that you would look up the channel and maybe consider supporting them. I get that, but when they pull up the channel page, of course, the first thing I am greeted with is a video with a thumbnail showing Kit and Krista, and the entire video is just their answer to his question. He made this clickbaity thumbnail with this clickbaity title that said, "Former Nintendo employees address how they handled the backlash to Nintendo." So yeah, he hogged the mic, and he turned it into content. Like, come on, it's not your panel. It's ridiculous. Oh no, but he threw it in along with the other videos. As if it was just another video. Last time I looked up this video like a day or two ago, out of sheer morbid curiosity, and I didn't watch it. I didn't want to add another view to it because it's already got 2.6K. Like, and you know that the full-on panel where I like did active research on the Internet Archive to find all this old Labo stuff that's actually really cool that people put together. You know that's probably not even gonna crack 100. Probably not. Like the first one from a year ago maybe hit 3. But such as the landscape, you never know what's gonna work. Anyway, maybe I'm unnecessarily starting drama because someone might see this and then be like, ooh, I can figure out who that is. But I'm not naming the name. But, like, I don't know. I shouldn't even be afraid to name the name, honestly, because it's so stupid. But yeah, so not the note I expected to end that rant on, but that was PAX in a nutshell. Or a lot of nutshells. I've been talking for 2 hours and 22 minutes about PAX. So yeah, I should probably consider wrapping things up, but do we have any other questions that I can address about this stuff from PAX? Like I said, Windswept was probably my favorite game. I may have tentatively booked my hotel for next year because they announced next year's dates for March, and that's less than a year away, which means that you can book a hotel. You can book a hotel up to a year in advance, and now it's less than a year away. So I may have tentatively booked it. However, I did book it with the option to I paid a little extra for the option to get a refund if I cancel up to 48 hours in advance. So if I evaluate things and decide not to go in 2026 for any reason, then I can get my money back. Well, actually, it's more like not get my money back, but like not be charged when the time comes is more how it is. Yeah, I'd say. Oh, I didn't talk about compensation not guaranteed. So, real quick, I did play compensation not guaranteed as part of my day 3 experience. I forgot to name that when I was going down the list again. It's the Papers, Please like game where you are offering compensation or denying compensation for people to keep their properties. And there's this ongoing story in the background about urban redevelopment and how they, of course, want to close in on these people's properties to make things better. And yeah, so the game is like find discrepancies between the documents and then evaluate if they should get the compensation or not. Yes, but we're not talking about Lumia City, Mandu. I did have a slight issue with the game, and I told the developers about it. And that is, I noticed that, like, okay, here's a character where their birthday on one document doesn't match the birthday on the other document. So I thought, okay, of course I'm supposed to click on the birthdays and mark that as a discrepancy. But for some reason, and it was just with the birthdays, for some reason, the game would not let me select both birthdays at the same time, even though that's exactly what you were supposed to do. So I mentioned this just in case it was like a big thing. Because, that would kind of ruin the game if you were supposed to point something out and then the game interface literally doesn't let you do it. But I do like the direction of the game, and I think that as long as something like that gets fixed, then they've got a good title on their hands. And so, people who are looking for something like Papers, Please, because there's only one Papers, Please in the universe, while still having its own little message about, property and taking over the neighborhood and taking from the little people. That's a slightly different story than the one that Papers, Please would tell about immigration, while still being pretty thematically similar. If you're looking for the next Papers, Please, this is a good thing to keep your eye on. I just hope they fix that one little problem I had. Okay, so yeah, favorite games were... I can pull the list back up. Yeah, Windswept, Big Catch, and then probably... Man, I guess I just have a thing for platformers because I keep thinking about the platformers. Windswept, Big Catch, Ultimate Sheep Raccoon is basically a platformer, but I was going to say Demon Tides. Maybe Constance, though. Maybe Constance would make the cut for favorite. But I would need to play more and see if it gets as hard as Hollow Knight, because I could not handle Hollow Knight. Oh, wait, what am I saying? Nocturne. Nocturne is probably on my list. That's an RPG rhythm game. So there you go. Let's just add that to the list of favorites. And then for least favorite, that would be obvious. Like, I legitimately think that freaking AI game was the one game that I could call bad that I played. I think, like, maybe there was a tech issue here or there with some of them, and I made sure to let the devs know, like in the case of Demon Tides with the ladder, or that one glitch that happened in Alma. I would probably need to know more about Kajora to see if the game picks up at all before I can call that, like, good. And I guess I wasn't huge on Among Us 3D's tag mode, but if it still has the regular mode, then there might still be some value there for people. This is true. I should not count it as a game because it doesn't function as a game. So, my least favorite thing, if you even want to call it a thing. Yeah. I think if I had to give out an award for cuteness, though, it would go for Royalty Free for All. I'm not huge on fighters, but I guess if I knew enough people who would play it, it's just hard to find people to do multiplayer indies. because like they're good, but I mean, let's use Shovel Knight Showdown as an example. I think that's a very competent platform fighter as well, but I don't really get to play it unless I do the single player against the NPCs. But you know, I don't know anyone who's shouting at me, "Let's play Shovel Knight Showdown." I hope that there's a decent number of people, especially with the low price, who will buy Shinnen's Fast Fusion when that comes to Switch 2. And even if they don't, that game has game share. So you can actually find people to play with as long as someone owns it. So I hope that becomes a good recent example of a multiplayer indie that does well and that I can actually play from time to time. Yeah, well, like I said, Mondo, even if you don't, I might be able to just share the game with you via the game share. And game share, at least on the receiving end, works on Switch 1. And this is true of Switch 2 games like Split Fiction. I mean, it might be a case-by-case basis, but we might be looking at a possibility where I can pick up the game on my Switch 2 and share it with you on your Switch 1, and we can race together. I can't say that for sure. I don't know all the specifics, but that might be a thing. Which is great. It's going to increase the player count. Well, there will only be one way to find out. But yeah, thanks for listening back to several hours of me ranting about everything I saw at PAX East. It was a great time. I got a lot of comments on my pin. I forgot to mention the free thing I got. Someone saw my pin and my Leighton clothes, which I was wearing at the time, and I was like, here, have this notepad. And you can use this notepad to write notes when you are playing a puzzle game and solving the puzzles. So, you know, now when I finally get around to blueprints, because that is on my short list of things I need to get to ASAP, I have a little thing that I can use for blueprints. Because she told me to use it for puzzle games, so I will. Like, it's heart-shaped. I don't know where I put it, but it's around here somewhere. Okay, but yeah, for real, that was like everything I saw and did at PAX. In some ways, it was less eventful because like I didn't win a game show or anything. I guess I got a free T-shirt after playing Constance, but that was because they were giving away stuff to everyone who played the demo, and you spun a wheel and it landed on T-shirt. But it wasn't a Constance T-shirt. It was a T-shirt for a different demo they had there called Soul Knox. And I didn't play that one, but now I have a Soul Knox T-shirt. Still, lots of games that I played and 2 whole panels that are coming soon to VODs near you. But thanks if you listen back to this. Hopefully we learned some nice stuff about some upcoming games from PAX East, especially on the indie side, because this is where they really get to shine when the big publishers aren't there. And, you know, stick around for more stuff in the future. Maybe about some of these games if I end up playing the full stuff.